he pulled me in the office and said, I'm really sorry, you have cervical cancer. I had 3 miscarriages. And then after that, I could not fall pregnant. Like nothing was happening. And this went on for 9 years. I can't even remember a lot of my 30s because I think a lot of it was consumed by trying to get pregnant.
You ended up having 7 IVFs in total.
I had 3 in the UK. It was excruciating. It was the worst pain I could see on the screen. It was like a white cave. I went back to the apartment and I literally broke. And I was like, I'm never ever going to be a mum.
Cool. Well, good afternoon there, Hannah Scott. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Ridiculously Human podcast.
Thanks for having me, Gareth.
Yeah, wow. Well, what a blast from the past, right?
I mean,
we've known each other for such a long time. We basically kind of grew up together in London. We have this amazing bunch of friends that we sort of grew up with together and partied together and just had like this incredible friendship. And yeah, like, you know, what is kind of like amazing to me is like how we can go through like life and friendships and stuff and actually never really know somebody truly deeply, you know, like, because I don't know, you're in a different phase of your life. You're just like partying, you're having fun, etc., etc. And then like now we're like older and like we've been chatting and stuff and I'm like finding out all these things of your story and I'm like, man, how did I never know some of this stuff? You know, it's so crazy.
it is crazy. Yeah, you only know the surface, don't you? And not too deep when you're that your age, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you know Ryan Howell. I mean, he's like a guy that I've known since I was,
Yeah.
in high school. Our moms went to school together, and like
Yeah.
even I've had him on the podcast twice. And the first time I had him on the podcast, I was like, Bud, how did I not know this about you? I grew up with you, you know, and I kind of feel like a lot of the time, things are kind of surface level. So, you know,
Yeah, definitely.
always encourage people to just ask a few deeper questions when it comes to your friends, because you never know how it might connect you or just help you understand them that little bit better. So anyway, here we are. Like, this podcast is going to primarily focus on the sort of topic of surrogacy. But I think to kind of get us there, like your story really helps kind of, sort of understand like, why you have your own business, in surrogacy business. So first of all, you told me that when you were in your 20s, you were traveling around Australia, obviously probably having, the greatest time of your life. And then you found out you had cervical cancer.
Yeah, it was a shock. So what happened was I'd arranged to go away for 1 year, got the visa to go to Australia. I had a friend's 30th birthday, then we were traveling, we're going to sail around the Whitsundays. And before I went, everyone, like I had like a medical check, had a smear test done, and went to Harley Street. So it was quite a influential doctor that I saw. And he pulled me in the office and he said, I've found some cells that don't look too bad, but what I want you to do is go when you get to Australia, go and have them checked out with a friend of mine who's a doctor in Australia. So I was like, oh, okay. Are you sure I don't need to have more of a check before I go? He was like, no, but promise me you will go and see this guy when you get to Australia. So I was like, okay. But as soon as I arrived in Australia, we had the Whitsundays booked. So I went and we did our 14 days, I think it was, around the Whitsundays. And then as soon as we finished that, I went to see this doctor in Australia, had all the tests done again, and he pulled me in the office and he said, I'm really sorry to tell you, but you have cervical cancer. And I was like, oof, everything, my whole world just kind of collapsed before me.
Yeah.
I really think the doctor in the UK maybe have known it was a bit more serious than what it was. And when I had a chat with the doctor in Australia, he did say that if you was in the UK, they would have given you a hysterectomy, like straight away. There's no reason, rhyme or reason, they would have just done a hysterectomy. Now you're here, I don't think we need to do a hysterectomy. So that was my main focus, because when you're in your 20s, you're thinking, the first thing you think of is, I want to have kids, right? I want to be a mum. So he said, we don't need to give you a hysterectomy, but we will remove a lot of your cervix. And I was like, okay. So we had chats and everything, and I said, okay, let's do this. Let's do that. So I went in for surgery. They removed a lot of my cervix. And then after, when I was in recovery, he said, we're not sure whether this has now gone into the lymph nodes or not. And then obviously my whole world broke again, thinking, oh my God, if I knew if it goes into the lymph nodes, it's not great, And he took me back into surgery. He took a biopsy from one of my lymph nodes. Sorry, I think he removed one of my lymph nodes and he done the biopsy on it. But it come back as it hadn't gone into the lymph nodes. So I was very, very lucky that it hadn't. And we just kept it as just removing all of, like, pretty much most of my cervix. So then I was in recovery in Australia. My mum flew out and everything, which was all great. So then I'm thinking, great, I can still have kids,
Mm.
And I continued in Australia. I think I'd done like another 7 months in Australia, something like that, before I come home.
And how did you feel, like, emotionally, like, at that point?
At that point, looking back, I mean, it's like 20 years ago, 20 odd years ago now, but even now I still look back and I remember how traumatic it was. But I tried to block everything out because I was like, I'm on this like 1 year. I was still young. I was on this 1 year in Australia. I wanted to have fun and enjoy myself. But I think I put a lot to the back of my brain on actually how I was really feeling inside and how traumatic really it was. I think I buried a lot of emotions, and I think they come out a lot later in life, to be honest.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's tough.
they certainly do. Yeah, and you kind of hide it as well. Like I said, you go and then you party and you're having lots of fun and you're like, cool, life is
Yeah.
great again. And yeah,
Yeah. And I probably partied too much when I was there because I was trying to block out all of my feelings. So and I'm gonna have fun, I'm gonna do what I want to do. But yeah, probably really all I wanted to do was come home,
yeah, wow.
really.
Yeah, wow, yeah, I can imagine. Sure. And then, so it's like one of those things that you almost like, I don't know if you forget about it, but it's like, you're like, cool, you carry on living life, and then it sort of becomes apparent again, like oh, wow. And you're in your 30s and you said you try start having babies, but it doesn't go
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. So obviously I meet my partner, and um we started trying to have babies. I had 3 miscarriages. My third miscarriage, I had to have intervention. So I had to have like a medical termination.
Mm.
And I think that was then the next part of my problem, because then they scarred all of my uterus from doing the termination.
Oh,
So this is what I found out a lot later in life. So when I was doing IVFs, we'll get onto that part, but yeah, so they done they call it a D&C, where they had to do a medical termination. So then that was my third one. That was done, and then after that, I could not fall pregnant. There was like nothing was happening, and this went on for like 8 years, 9 years. It was a long time.
do you mind
Yeah,
if we just speak
yeah,
a little bit about maybe the sort of emotional side of, say, miscarriages and stuff?
yeah,
Like, what
yeah.
was that like?
Like the first one, you think, okay, it happens. It was early. You hear a lot. People do have miscarriages. If something's not right with the embryo, then sometimes it happens because it's not meant to be. And then the second one happens, and it's a little bit later on, and you're thinking, oh, what's going on here? Okay, well, let's try again. And then the third one, it become like it was the emotional strain on me was huge, and also on my partner at the time as well. It was, for him, it was. because all he could see me was going through so much pain all the time and crying and not knowing why it's happening to you. Um, when I looked more into it, it could have been because of my cervix had been taken away. So my cervix was not holding the babies,
Mm.
which was another reason. But yeah, emotionally, it was really, really hard. I'm quite a strong woman, but I think you can only take so much even when you're strong, it's that constant battle with and not knowing why, with me, I think it's or with most people it's why me, why is this happening to me, all of the time, no rhyme or reason, but when you look into it more and you speak more to doctors, there was reasons behind it,
Mm.
um and then it made me think, well, maybe I should have just had a hysterectomy, back in the UK, So it was like this, why am I having all these things? If I'd have had a hysterectomy, then I would have looked at other options sooner rather than later, not having to go through all this mental torture that I seem to be going through, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. Yeah. And I can imagine it's like a confidence thing as well. You kind of, especially as
Yeah.
a woman, like, this is like one of your sort of like given rights, you know what I mean? Like to
Yeah.
to have a child and hold a child, and then now
Yeah.
you find you can't, and it can
Yeah.
imagine it knocks your confidence a little bit in some way.
Really? Yeah. And I've always been confident and I've always been like, right, you're told all of your life, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, You've
Hmm.
got to do things in life. And then suddenly you're like, I want to get pregnant, I want to get pregnant. And it's either not happening or things are happening when you're getting pregnant. So it's a total your mind is just all over the place. I can't even remember a lot of my 30s because I think a lot of it was consumed by trying to get pregnant, and it become my focus and I think I was probably really hard to live with as well, well, I know I was hard to live with because it's your focus throughout your whole time of being at home. You're thinking timing when should we go to bed? When should we do this?
Yeah.
Like you're timing everything becomes like scheduled, and it's not the way to live. You can't live like that. But when you're so desperate trying to have a baby, you do desperate things.
For sure. I mean, I can't begin to imagine how like traumatic it must be, and difficult, right? I mean, even I remember, like, say, when Marissa and I were, trying to get pregnant, and like you see, like your wife at the sort of, the points in time when she checks, and it's like, okay, again,
Yeah,
she's not pregnant, and then she's down, and you're like, wow, and that
yeah,
is tough enough, like, but I
yeah,
can't
yeah.
even begin to imagine what it's like a miscarriage. That's a total different one, and it's probably puts a lot of strain on your relationship.
Oh, absolutely. Lots and lots of strain on the relationship, definitely. Um, over the years because it's your main focus, and you kind of forget your partner in all of
Mm,
this because you're so focused on, right, this is what we need to do. It's researching absolutely everything to do with fertility. It becomes your mindset. That's all I was doing, morning, afternoon, night. I'd be at work, I was researching fertility, what we could do, what's the next thing, what's the next test, money, throwing money, just all of this. It costs thousands of pounds to try and figure out what was going on.
yeah, for sure. And then you ended up having, what was it, 7 IVFs in total?
Yeah, so I had three in the UK, which was not great anyway, because I find like in the UK that you're just more of a number. They don't look into your past or doing all the testing. So that didn't work out. So I then looked into Greece because that was the next. There was this clinic in Greece that had really, really good reviews. I knew a lot of people had been there and had pregnancy. So then I went out to Greece, had a consultation, started my IVFs there. I think I had 4 IVFs in Greece.
So when you say
Maybe,
four, sorry, when you say four, don't you
yeah,
have to, like, that's over a few years, I'm assuming, because you
yeah,
can't just
yeah, yeah,
have,
yeah.
like,
No,
yeah,
no. Yeah, and also it's money as well,
yeah,
so
tons of
you've got to
money.
like, yeah, you're looking like, £8,000, £9,000 per cycle, plus all your accommodation and your flights and everything else. So obviously this was over maybe a 4-year period, 4 or 5-year period that
Sure.
we were doing IVF transfers, and then we'd get embryos, and then I'd have a transfer fouled, go home, like I'd be at home at that stage, and then I'd go back for another transfer, and then I'd go home. It fouled. Depending on
Mm.
how many embryos we had, I would go back and forward for these transfers. Um, and then once those embryos had run out, I'd do another one, you know? So
Mm.
it was pretty tough on the body and
Yeah,
the emotional side. Yeah.
for sure. Because it is like it's damaging on the body too, isn't it? From what I understand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. The amount of stimulation medications I had to take, my body was bruised, like, and before every, uh, most transfers, they recommended that I have something called a hysteroscopy,
Hmm.
which is where they go in and they clear your uterus for implantation, making sure you've got the best results. So I maybe had, it sounds ridiculous now, but I probably had like 5 hysteroscopies before the transfers. After probably 5 of them, I think in that 4 years, it was crazy. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
And is
yeah.
that like a scrape? So it's painful as well.
Well, you're asleep in Greece when they do
Okay.
these hysteroscopies. When they do the IVF ones, you're asleep, so you don't feel anything, but you don't see anything either. So you don't really know what's going on inside your body.
Mm.
Looking back now, I'm like, was I crazy? Why was I doing that? But I think when you are desperate and a doctor is telling you, do this is going to really help, you'll do it, because you think it's your only way. Um,
Yeah. And you
but yeah,
say like you look back and you're like, why was I doing that? Because
yeah.
you weren't thinking of, okay, cool, what is the alternative? Is that why you're saying that? Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking, well, and also I wasn't really looking into actually, is this damaging my body even more? I was just thinking at that moment in time, yes, right, this doctor said do this, so okay, I'll do this. But probably as I got older and looking back on stuff now, I probably think, oh, I shouldn't have just followed those footsteps. Because in back of my mind, I remember thinking, do I really need this, or is it just money?
Mm.
Like you never know, what is just money to a clinic and what is the right thing to do, you know? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, who
Yeah,
knows?
exactly. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know, you look at the medical industry a little bit now and you think, okay, it's a bit of a money-making racket in some way. It's not
Definitely.
necessarily what it was, say, meant to be when it was first created or whatever, like let's help
Yeah,
people, get better and these sort of things. And now it's almost captured in a way, and it's like become
yeah,
this money-making kind of machine, and it doesn't necessarily have your best interest at heart.
yeah, absolutely. That's the way I feel about some places now, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So you had this, how do you say, hysteroscopy?
Yeah, hysteroscopy.
And
Um,
you said you had one in Greece and it kind of resulted in devastating news.
yeah, so I think it was like after my last embryo transfer, I started to then look at other things like who else can help me. I want to know what's going on inside my body because something is not right. Um, and I found this professor who was not an IVF doctor. He was a professor, a gynecologist, but he was not in it for the money because he wasn't selling any IVF or any. It was just diagnostics. Okay, so I flew out to Greece on my own, went and had a meeting with him. I really liked him. He was very knowledgeable. And he said, look, I want to do an in-house hysteroscopy, but it means you being awake. And I was like, oh God. He said, but because I knew I was always put out for these procedures because they're not the most pleasant procedures to have. So I was thinking, okay, but I thought I've got to do it because this is the only way I'm ever going to know what's going inside my body. He said, we'll have it on the screen. You will be able to see your uterus on the screen, and then we can go from there and let's see what's going on. So we did this hysteroscopy. It was excruciating. Like I can't. It was the worst pain I've ever been in. I can't even tell you, Gareth. It was
Mhm.
just awful. But I went through it, and as he was doing it, I could see on the screen. It was like a white cave full of like uh, sticky white cave, just a sticky white cave. That's all I can explain it. And he said, "You see this?" And I said, "Yeah." He went, "That is scar tissue." He said, "This," but I'd only had a hysteroscopy 1 month previous when I was doing my IVF. So I said, but how can it be like that? Because I only had a hysteroscopy 1 month ago. And he went, well, they either didn't do a great job or your scar tissue just grows very, very quickly. Um, he said, by the looks of it, the scar tissue has been there for a very, very long time. And he said afterwards, he said to me, you have a surrogacy uterus. That was his exact words to me. He said, you have a 1% chance of ever conceiving. And I was like, I wasn't expecting it at all. But it was the best thing I ever done. Best thing I ever done. Even though it was the worst news a woman can ever be told, it was the best thing I'd ever done in that whole like 9, 10 years, because I knew then that this was never going to work for me. So all of those IVFs that I'd done, all of those history, it was just a complete waste of time, you know,
You
complete
wonder why,
waste of
like, they
time.
don't, like, why did no one suggest that, like, earlier on, sort of thing, like, look, let's just check this out. Because I
Yeah,
suppose you
well,
said they don't check your history and these sort of things, maybe.
no. And plus, these doctors that I'd been to in Greece that have done these hysteroscopies, the 4 or 5 that I'd had before, surely they would have seen this.
Mm.
Like, but they've then continued to do the embryo transfers when there was no luck for me. It wasn't ever going to implant. He said there was literally no blood supply there. There was no blood supply. He said, there's no blood supply in your uterus. How do you expect an embryo to implant? He was pretty tough about it, but that's what I needed.
Yeah.
He said, how do you expect anything to ever implant in here? It's just an ice cave. And I was just like, wow. So pulled myself together and then I went home. Well, not home. I went back to the apartment and I literally broke. Like my whole world just fell apart. And I was like, that's it. I'm done. I can't, I'm never going to have children. I'm never, ever going to be a mum. And then obviously I got on the phone to my sister and, I'm so very close to her. So we had a good chat. She said, Hannah, there's ways. There's definitely ways, just, you know, take your time, come home and we'll look at different avenues that we can go down. Yeah. And that's when I moved on.
Wow. And then was it the same doctor that then said to you, look, let's send your embryos from Greece to Georgia?
No, so my embryos were in Greece. We're in the clinic that I was using before. So we just transported. So we decided to transport after we'd looked into surrogacy, which was my only really option now to
Mm.
have a child. We looked at lots of different countries, and Georgia was the one that was available to us because we weren't married. So a lot of countries you do have to be married to do surrogacy, but in Georgia you don't have to be married to do surrogacy. Things have changed a little bit now, but so that's where we went to start our surrogacy journey, and we had embryos sent over to Georgia.
And then you had your first little
Yeah,
son.
yeah.
And I mean, what was that like? Like, like now after all
Oh,
these years.
yeah, yeah. I can't even tell you. Like from 1 minute, and it was only from that last um, meeting with the doctor, it was probably 12, 13 months on that George arrived. So it was like very quickly after that, once I knew my situation and the real truth behind it all and what I needed to do, it didn't take long to finally get what everybody else had, especially of my age at that time, everyone had already had children. So, it was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah. Yeah. One of the best moments, I think the best moment of my life, definitely. Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
that's cool. And like, what sort of relief, I guess, did that bring to you as well? Like in
Yeah.
from a relationship point of view, and just, I
Yeah.
guess, your whole sort of being. You're probably like, wow, sure,
Even I mean, stress can do a lot to the body, can't it?
yeah,
And before I used to have um constant jaw problems, jaw aches, headaches. I think it was just where I was so stressed. My body was so stressed with what had been going on. George was born and literally everything lifted. Like my whole body just kind of relaxed, and all these aches and pains and things that I had, it just went. It was unbelievable. Like, and it just shows you how much what stress can do to the body. Um, like he was there and I was in my own little bubble, but it was COVID. as well. So I was living in Georgia then.
Oh, wow.
But I had to stay there for 5 months, I think it was, with George. So yeah, we were there for 5 months with him because of COVID. We couldn't get out.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, that's a great way to bond, hey? That's for sure.
Yeah, well, we're definitely in our own little bubble.
For
Yeah, like we
sure.
didn't. Yeah, yeah, we didn't have any family to come out. So we definitely all like, the bonding was great. Yeah, it was hard work. I didn't realize how much hard work it would be having a newborn baby, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every minute of it for sure.
For sure. Well, all those nights partying and like, non-sleeping nights and stuff, they were then paying dividends, weren't they? Weren't they? Because you at least you had some of that sort of memory in the bank there of not sleeping.
Yeah, it definitely helped. It definitely helped.
Oh, classic. So you've always been like very sort of entrepreneurial minded, right? Like, since I've known you, you basically had your own business.
Yeah.
And then I think it was 2022, you'd obviously learnt a bit about, the whole surrogacy process and everything, and thought, hang on a second, there's some room for improvement here. And
Yeah.
you started your own business called Little Embryos.
Yes.
So I don't know if you want to like maybe talk a little bit about like what was missing and then why you wanted
Yeah.
to get involved all of a sudden.
Yeah. So George was born in 2020, and then we obviously lockdown happened, and then there was I was on a Facebook group. That's how it all kind of started. I was on a Facebook group which was just for surrogacy in Georgia. And I used to, where I'd done so much research, I used to answer a lot of the questions that people were asking. And then I got asked to be the admin for that group, probably because I was talking too much, like I normally do. So I become this admin for a year, and then I got poached by a company in Georgia um, that wanted me to start working for UK intended parents to help with the communication and things like this. Um, and I jumped at the chance because even though my first journey gave me George, which was amazing, um, I wanted to kind of because they asked me to join their team as well. But I decided to go with another team to get a little bit more experience because even though George arrived, some of the communication and everything wasn't great. So anyway, I started working for this other company, and I had another year with them till 2021. So I was working with them, helping intended parents from the UK, and then once once you get into the industry, you start to see the downfalls and things that can be done a lot better, especially coming from a European side, I would say. We're used to a different kind of service. Um, so I decided to start my own agency because I thought I could do it better.
Hmm.
I thought I could help people in a more personal way rather than being kind of a number for a big company. I wanted something that was more like more boutique, specialized, more of a personal journey to people rather than being just another intended parent. I wanted to get to know intended parents, wanted to hear their history, what they've been through, how did they get here, how to make things better for them. And also the communication side is really important in this, which I probably didn't have for my first journey. And it's really important when you're, a million miles away from what's going on. You want to know everything and you want it total transparency. It's really important in this field. So I started Little Embryos, and we've just grown and grown and grown. Started off with intended parents from the UK because obviously it was my niche. But now we have people from the US, Canada, Asia, Australia. Yeah, so it's grown and grown. And all of my work comes from recommendation, really. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's incredible. Well, I can just see the way you talk about it now. Like that's what people want, right? They want that trust.
Yeah.
They want that kind of empathy and like because you've gone through it,
Yeah.
right? And you're able to offer that. And
Yeah.
I think that's obviously why it's growing so much as well, because like people
Yeah.
they
I think
gravitate towards that.
I think you just said the word actually empathy as well, and like compassion in this, because I think that's missing from a lot of surrogacy cases. People don't really um, look into the actual couple
Mm.
and how they can help them on the compassion side as well. And also, if they need, we teamed up with a lot of people. Like I've got a nutritionist that helps us. We've also got counselors, fertility counselors that we recommend because it's not an easy journey. Surrogacy still isn't an easy journey. It doesn't work first time for everybody. Um, so I think you also have to, be honest with people that even though this is something different, it's still a journey, and it may not happen on the first go, the first transfer. It may happen on the second transfer, third transfer, but we're there to support you the whole way because you know they've already been through such an emotional journey, I would imagine, from either a medical point of view or losing, you know, having to have medical terminations, all of this kind of thing that leads people to surrogacy. I think the compassion and the empathy is a real big part of this journey. It's really important.
So, for my understanding, like, how does it happen when you say like,
Yeah.
the first one might not work? What does that actually mean?
Yeah. So, because there are many factors to embryos, when people are making their own embryos, um, there's there could be medical factors to the intended father or the intended mother. The reason it might be the actual embryo that's not um, formed correctly, not chromosomally normal. Okay. Um, some people have to move on to egg donor. Sometimes they can't use their own genetic material. But before people can move on to egg donor, they're always going to try their own genetic material first of all, just to see if it can work. And it doesn't always work. So they have to move on to egg donor. So sometimes that does happen. And that's a real big jump for people, because you're not only grieving not carrying a child, you're then grieving not giving your own genetic material to the child. So there's all these big hurdles that can happen. Not for everyone, it doesn't happen for everyone, but some people it does happen like that. So you kind of end up having to be a bit of a counselor yourself and helping people in the right direction. And um, sometimes, we have genetic counselors that maybe if we feel that their own genetic material is not working, we refer them to our genetic counselor because they may need to speak to them to say, this is why it's not working. The best way to have a child is going to be through egg donation or sperm donation or, whatever that may be. But we have professionals there to help them where in other companies, maybe that they'll just go, right, we're just moving on to egg donation.
Mm.
It's like,
Yeah, they
what?
don't help explain it and like talk you
No,
through it and
no,
stuff.
no. So there's lots of factors, Yes, own eggs do work in many, many times. Usually it's the uterus, the intended mother's uterus, but in not all circumstances that's the case. It can be the embryo as well. And then we need to move on to other factors of why it's not working.
And
Yeah,
then is it like somebody else who carries it for you, or is this
yeah.
yes, but
Yeah,
it's not always like that, or
gestational surrogacy. So we
yeah.
do. So there's traditional surrogacy and gestational surrogacy. So we don't do traditional because that's using the surrogate's eggs, and that's illegal in Georgia. Okay, so um, gestational surrogacy is using the eggs and sperm of the intended mother and father, and putting the embryo into the surrogate. Okay, or the egg donor and father's sperm embryo into the surrogate. That is what's legal in Georgia.
Okay, okay, wow. Okay, so you also said to me when we started, like when we were catching up before this, that there's like a tremendous amount of people who are actually, going down this route now,
Yeah,
right? Like much more
yeah,
than you would sort of even think, really.
yeah, yeah.
Are there are there any like particular reasons for it, like trends, or I don't know, like is it like health reasons or other things?
Yeah. So in Georgia, you have to have a medical reason, whether that be a hysterectomy, where you can't carry a child. Um, there is different MRKH syndrome, where you are born without a uterus. So that's another medical reason. Um, The other medical reasons are if you've had multiple medical terminations, so you can't carry a child, then that's another reason, or multiple IVFs that have not resulted in a live birth. Um, so these are the reasons that we can do surrogacy in Georgia.
And what's like so that's like part of the vetting process. Like
Yeah.
are there other things that are part of the vetting process? Like I think you said marriage was one, but
Yeah.
or yeah, not
So you can be um, you have to be in a relationship for over 1 year. So that is either proven by marriage, or you have to have letter from the IVF doctor. Say you've had IVF or you've got a medical reason. Has to be a medical letter that has to be signed in front of a notary, and it has to have an apostille to say that this is a genuine letter to say that you cannot have your own pregnancy. So there's quite a lot of paperwork to be allowed to do surrogacy in Georgia.
and what about the like say the lady carrying the baby? Like what's the
Yeah,
vetting process on that side?
yeah. So she has a lot of medical checks, obviously, psychological checks, home checks, criminal checks, background checks. So everything is, um, yeah, it's a long process for them, and then obviously a lot of surrogates don't make it because it's the medical side of it is very strict. Um, So once the medical has been done, then they will have the psychological check with the doctor. That only become mandatory in 2023, actually, the psychological check. There was Georgia was going to ban, this is another part, but because of this psychological check, Georgia was going to ban surrogacy for foreigners in 2023. Um, but it went to Parliament and it didn't get banned. But they brought in a lot more rigorous checks for the surrogates. So, and one of them was a psychological check. And there's now like a big database of surrogates and egg donors in Georgia. So they can see and track who is doing what. So I think that was a really good thing to have done after Parliament as well.
And do you have a choice? Like can I go like I would like that sort of
Yeah.
lady to carry it, or is there a matching process?
So there is a matching process, but what we say to people is give us the criteria that you're looking for, as in no C-section, C-section. Do you have an age range? Um, every surrogate has already part of it has they have to have their own child anyway with no complicated pregnancy. Um, but some people prefer to have natural birth rather than C-section. And in Georgia, if you've already had one C-section with her own child, she would have to have another C-section. That's the way it works in Georgia. So some people want to have a natural birth. So they would say to us, can we have a surrogate that has not had, that has only had vaginal births, not any C-sections? But we don't give a choice as such. It's more of a medical choice, of what you would prefer. And then we will match you to what you told us that you would prefer. But the final say goes with the doctor, because the final say is who is medically clear, who is psychologically well to do this process. So the final say lands with the doctor, really.
Is there like is there like enough sort of surrogates to handle the demand?
Yes, um, a lot of agencies are using traveling surrogates now in Georgia. We don't. We only use Georgians, Georgian citizens. But a lot of people are using traveling surrogates from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Philippines. So these surrogates are coming through. But from our perspective, we prefer surrogates that are living at their home. They are living with their children, their family. We, we, I feel it's a little bit more ethical in that way because they're not away from their own families and their children. And we can monitor things very closely when they're in Georgia and being a part of the full program as a Georgian. When you have your baby, there's a lot of paperwork after birth that needs to be completed, or different countries need a different paperwork. Some people need paperwork 8 weeks after birth. UK needs paperwork 6 weeks after birth. If you have a traveling surrogate, they're more likely to be going home within 2 to 3 weeks after birth. So then you have issues with paperwork. It's trying to get this paperwork from the surrogate afterwards, possibly. So we prefer not to put ourselves in that position, and we only work with Georgian surrogates.
And do the sort of the parents and the surrogates form a relationship, or is that like kind of barred?
No, no, not barred at all. You can definitely form a relationship if you want to, but it has to go through us. So all of our surrogates have their own coordinator. So someone that looks after them who needs anything. If they need anything, then one of their coordinators will get it for them, and medications, things like this. Um, because surrogates will not speak English. So
Mm.
they will you always need translation. And I don't know whether you've ever seen the Georgian language, but it's extremely hard to Google translate anything with it. It doesn't come out right. So we need to have a translator there to help with the communication. So at scan appointments, we can do video calls so they can see their surrogate, ask questions, and then the coordinator can translate for them. After birth, up to them if they want to continue, try and have a relationship on social media. I still talk to my two surrogates that I had on social media, but it's very basic because I'm trying to translate like English to Georgian. I don't think it translates that great, but lots of love hearts and thumbs up and things like that. And we are still friends on Facebook, but it's quite hard to have a communication relationship, I would say, with Georgians, because in most cases they won't speak English.
And does it ever happen that like a surrogate, they go, I just want to keep the baby? Like, do you ever run into things like that?
We've never come across that. In Georgia, when you're starting a surrogacy journey, there is a notary contract. And within that notary contract, the surrogate signs this contract. And in Georgia, they do not have any rights to the child. They are not genetically related to the child. So they have no rights to the child. But the surrogates all have their own families. They don't want to keep your baby. They really
Mm.
are doing this. A lot of the surrogates are doing it to put their own children through university, or they buy land. They're doing it to help their own families as well. But if you ever go to Georgia or if you ever meet Georgians, they're really family orientated. They absolutely adore kids. Um, and both of my surrogates were amazing. Um, they were so kind and so loving towards, carrying my children. And I think that's all you can ask for, really,
Mm.
with someone else that's carrying your child. But they were great. They were
Yeah.
really sweet.
Wow, that's really, really nice. Do you have you ever run into like sort of any people that sort of challenge you on this, like from a say a moral, ethical kind of perspective? Like, do you have any do you have any
Only on
pushback at all?
social media.
Yeah.
Only on social media. If we send some posts out, you'll get maybe a bit of, backlash on playing God but until you've walked in someone's shoes who's been in this position, I think it's very hard to comment on what's right and what's wrong. And from being in this position myself, having met my surrogates and how amazing they were and what it's also done for their life and what it's done for my life, without them, I'm just eternally grateful to them, because without them, I wouldn't be a mother. And they have put their children through high education. They have bought beautiful houses, um, which is very hard to come by in Georgia. If you are not from a very, um, very well-off family in Georgia, jobs are quite hard to come by. So this is also a way for them to be with their children at home, because a lot of them have young children themselves, um, but also have that have the expenses and the money that they get from this to enhance their life as well. You know, you do get some pushback from people saying, "Well, you're buying babies." This you do get that, and I can see what people are saying, but it's not like that at all. And if you spoke to my surrogates, they would never say it was like that. We have they have an amazing life now. I have an amazing life. We're like two people that come together. I've given her something, she's given me something, and we're both grateful for each other. So, um, yeah, I think there are lots of negative comments because there is money involved. You know, there is money involved. A lot of the money goes towards agency costs as well and medical costs. But of course, with any surrogacy, even with the UK and the USA, the surrogates do get expenses. They have to be out of work for 1 year, you know, so they're losing money to do something for me. So I think they should have expenses. They should have some money towards their giving this time up for me, you know. So um, that's the way we look at it.
So, do you have actually have like an agreement that the surrogate doesn't work at all? Like, is
Yes.
that,
Yeah,
yeah?
she doesn't work. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
she doesn't
nice.
work. In our contracts, she doesn't work. This is her role, looking after the child for the pregnancy. And she has, usually they have their own children as well. So she's given up her time for me. So she deserves her expenses in return because she's losing 1 year's work for me.
Hmm.
So she needs to be, yeah, have some contribution to that.
And do you have like any sort of like heartwarming kind of stories, I guess, on either side of this, like the parents or that you're able to
Yeah.
share, like obviously
Yeah.
anonymously?
I had a little girl named after me recently,
How cool.
which was lovely. So there's a Hannah from Iceland.
Cool. Hannah.
Yeah. Um, well, I've got lots of heartwarming stories. I think, when I can get there for the births as well, it's really great for me because I can't go to every birth, but I try and get to as many as I can because from seeing it from start to finish, when people come to you in desperate situations, and so stressed out, and I've been there, I've seen it, I know how they feel, and you continue this whole journey with someone for, maybe 10, 11, 12 months. And to finally see them holding this baby that they've just wanted so much. And they're so grateful for everything, and they've turned up this really stressed person. And now they're just like this, a just completely changed person once they're holding their baby. And it just reminds me of how I was when I started on this journey. So I think every birth is uplifting for us, because you've just made, someone so happy um, that would never have been able to have a child without
Mm,
surrogacy. So yeah, we have
yeah.
lots of uplifting stories, but I think any birth is uplifting for us.
Yeah, I know for sure. And what are your kind of like thoughts or what's the sort of agreement around kids then meeting the surrogate? Like, is it,
Yeah,
I mean, you're still in your early days, of course. So,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm sure it's something you have to think about.
We prefer it if they do. If they do, the surrogates would always like to meet the intended parents after birth because after when at birth the baby always once the baby's born, the baby goes straight to the intended parents for skin on skin because they need
Mm,
to have that closeness straight away. Well, that's how we work. But obviously, there's a huge part of this that the surrogate is there, even though it's not their genetic material. They have, carried this child, for all of this time. So, I definitely wanted to meet my surrogates after birth, and we did. We met after birth. The next day after birth, after she'd recovered, we took George and the twins to see the surrogate. Um, it's totally up to the parents in this situation, but in 90% of cases, they will want to meet the surrogate and make
mm.
sure she's okay. And, so she can meet the baby or the babies if it's twins. Yeah, definitely. Most cases, people want that.
And what about like say when the kids like, I don't know, 10,
Older.
11,
Yeah.
older, like, yeah.
In Georgia, there's always databases. So the surrogate's name will always be on the database. If they've used an egg donor, the egg donor will always be on the database in Georgia. So they can always find out if they want to. Um, that would be between, I think, the surrogate and the intended parents, whether they wanted that. We definitely don't stop it, but that would be up to them after birth whether they want to keep in touch themselves and come to some arrangement afterwards. But the children could definitely find out later on if they want to.
Mm. So you had George, and then
Yeah.
you had your twins,
Yeah.
and that was also obviously through surrogacy.
Yeah.
That you obviously can't plan to have the twins. It's just part of how does it work, that
Well,
part?
we had two embryos left, and obviously we didn't plan for twins. We planned for one more, but we planned for so we had two embryos left, and they was in one vial. So if we only took one, uh, if we because they're in one vial, you have to either implant both of them or you lose one because they have to be thawed. So we thought, well, let's just do an implant two because we implanted two with George, and George, luckily, he stuck. Then we implanted another two for our sibling journey, which was the second surrogate. We had no heartbeat at 8 weeks. So we had to do the surrogate had to have a termination on the 8 week mark on our second journey. And so we'd lost three embryos then. Surrogate wanted to continue with us, and so we waited for her until she was medically clear to start another transfer. And then the following one, we only had the two left, so we implanted two, and the two stuck.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, then Poppy and Josh were born. So I have a real crew now.
Yeah, for sure. And so how does the process work? Like, how do they remove embryos and then
Yeah,
store it, keep it safe? Like you
yeah,
mentioned, they have to thaw them, or do they freeze them? Like, what is it?
yeah.
How's the process work?
So we have obviously different processes. So if people are transporting embryos from overseas, then the embryos will come to clinic and they come in like a cryo tank. And then from the cryo tank, they're put into the cryopreservation in the clinics. So we can store this up to 10 years.
Hmm.
Um, and then when the surrogate is ready, and she's been medically prepared for embryo transfer, then they will thaw one of the embryos or two of the embryos, and implantation will happen for the embryo transfer.
And what points is the sperm like involved in this? Sorry, I
So
know my.
if they've already transported the embryos, they're
Yeah.
already coming as an embryo. So they've already had fertilization in
Okay.
their own country, and they're just transporting the embryos. If they are coming maybe for egg donation and husband sperm, then we will match them, or you will choose an egg donor. We have profiles that you can choose in Georgia. It's not anonymous in Georgia to have an egg donor, so you can look at profiles and see pictures, and they will choose their egg donor. And then when she's ready to start stimulation, she will be given medications. Um, she will have egg harvest. We will retrieve her, embryologist will retrieve her eggs, and we will fertilize with the husband's sperm, and then we wait to see how many embryos we get, and then we freeze all of those embryos, and we wait until their surrogate is ready to have the embryo transfer.
Wow. And then how long does that process take, like to transfer or plant the embryo?
Once we have the embryos, we wait for the next available surrogate, so which could be maybe 3 to 4 weeks. We wait for her cycle, and then she starts preparation on her cycle because she would have already been medically cleared. So we wait for her cycle to come, and then we start on the third day of her cycle. We'll start her medical preparation for embryo transfer. So it's around about 2 weeks before embryo transfer.
Mhm. And when you say people transport, they're literally they're taking
Yeah.
it themselves, like on an airplane, and they
No,
no.
no. You have to have a specialist. So they're called cryo carriers. So we have a really good company that we recommend that transport from Australia, Mexico, Europe, everywhere. So they'll come in like this container that is monitored. But it has to be a professional because it doesn't go through X-ray. It goes, they have clearance that they don't have to put these tanks through X-ray, and it goes on with them on board on the aeroplane. So they don't leave that tank
Oh,
until
wow.
until the embryos are taken to clinic and received by clinic.
Fascinating.
Amazing, huh?
No, it's amazing. Oh, that's so interesting. Okay, like how does like things like citizenship work then? Like, you're
Yeah.
having a baby in Georgia, it's surrogate is Georgian.
Yeah.
But you say both British. Like, how does it
Yeah.
then work?
So babies having a surrogate baby in Georgia, they do not get Georgian citizenship. Um, so you have to go on mum or dad's citizenship. So every citizenship is different. UK is quite hard because we have quite a rigorous paperwork that we need to give to the UK because we have to go through something called a parental order when you come back to the UK. Um, some countries like the USA is really easy. They just need a few documents, surrogacy contract, and baby's hospital documents. So USA intended parents usually leave within 4 weeks. UK parents are there for maybe 12, 14 weeks in Georgia.
Wow.
Yeah, until we've got all of the paperwork. It's submitted to all paperwork is submitted to the embassies, UK embassy or the American embassy, wherever the country is, and then they give the passports. So ours is a little bit different with UK because the embassy is linked to the HM passport office in London, and the HM passport office are the ones that send your passports direct to Tbilisi. But there's a lot of checks, a lot of paperwork checks, making sure that you have citizenship in the UK, you've lived in the UK, that you have domicile in the UK. You know, there's lots and lots of checks. But that's with every country. If you're USA, you have to have lived in the USA for a certain amount of years, you know, and have the passports for the USA.
And this is something that like your business, Little Embryos, like helps, like literally you kind
Yeah,
of handhold everything.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Like on my first journey, we didn't have that. So it was kind of like, oh, what do we need? You know, we
yeah.
wasn't even told that we needed any of this. You know, once the birth happened, we were like, it was only from Facebook groups and stuff, we're finding out information of what we needed. So yeah, we definitely handhold and getting all the paperwork through for them. So they're not waiting too long afterwards. So we can do the paperwork as we know the birth is happening. We could get a lot of the paperwork completed, and then after birth, they're literally just giving it to the embassy. So there's no waiting around, you know.
Mm, yeah. And out of interest, like what are the costs involved for this? Is it,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for surrogacy.
Yeah, yeah.
So for like it's anywhere, but depends what program you're going for. Like if you're transporting embryos, you're probably looking around 58 to $60,000.
Sure.
If you're going for egg donation, you're probably looking around $68,000 for a full program. But it also includes all the expenses for the surrogate, all the medical, the legal, notary. Um, it's like the full program cost. If you want, we do something called a guaranteed program, which only works with egg donation and the partner sperm, which is where we continue embryo transfers until you have a live birth,
Hmm.
which is around about $85,000 for this.
And does that like
Yeah.
say include, like you said, like sometimes families have to stay for 3 months in Georgia.
Yeah.
Is that part of your package? Is that separate stuff? How does that
No,
work?
it's separate. It's separate. We used to include like apartments, but we found that everybody has their own things that they like, you know. So we took the accommodation out. And so now we recommend places for people to stay, Airbnbs that we intended parents have stayed before and have been really happy. So now we do that because everybody has a different budget as well. So some people have a much larger budget than others, so want to stay somewhere a bit more luxurious, or
Mm.
so we give that option to them to figure out where they would like to stay.
And what sort of like, I guess, advice have you got for, mothers that are going through, like let's say like that they're struggling to have kids. But they
Yeah,
don't. They might be able to, but they're just struggling to have it. They might not go. They might not need surrogacy,
yeah,
but have like went through, say, like what you were going through. But there was actually more sort of hope. They didn't have half
yeah,
their kind of cervix like covered in
yeah,
scar tissue. Like what advice
yeah.
do you have for women going through that?
People, I would say, do you mean like if they want to not go for surrogacy and have like more treatment, or?
Yeah, like just I guess from an emotional point of view, or also like
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
like maybe to help them because you mentioned you have, I guess, nutritionists and
Yeah.
like there's other
And
ways
I
to
also,
yeah.
yeah, there's a great company that works with us, or we send people to them, and there's so many factors behind people um, with like sperm factors as well. A lot of people say like when you're struggling to get pregnant, oh, it's got to be the eggs, you know? Not always the eggs. Sometimes it's the sperm. Sometimes it's the men, you know? A lot of times we have sperm analysis come to us and we look at the sperm analysis and um, it's not great. It's really not great. And then, so having nutrition, making the sperm better, you know, there's lots of factors that you can do to help with sperm morphology and volume and all these things that are needed to make good embryos. Okay. Um, Other factors, eating and healthiness is really important when you're trying to make embryos. But also there's other factors which we've come across a lot recently. There's a company that I can't remember the name. Is it Fertility? Fertility is the company. So they do like really in-depth testing, and they do in-depth testing on the sperm, like in silent infections within the sperm and within the uterus as well. And you can get like packages from them that they send to your house, and you can do the testing and send it off to them. Um, Amazing the amount of people that have like silent infection that they never knew they had. They would never know they had it. And it's causing poor egg quality or poor sperm quality. And all they need to do is to have maybe a course of antibiotics to remove. We've come across this a lot. And then they're making, after they've had this treatment with this company, they are making amazing embryos. And we had one case, they actually did move on to surrogacy, and they had this treatment done, moved on to surrogacy, they were pregnant, and then surrogate is 16 weeks pregnant, and then she falls pregnant. So obviously everything they'd done to make these embryos for the surrogacy, but obviously it
Wow.
was helping from their point of view as well. So
Yeah.
now they have two children. Well, she carried one and the surrogate carried one. So
Yeah.
um,
Wow.
looking at lots of other factors, in-depth factors, not just yeah. I think looking at everything, egg quality, sperm quality is huge. And when people come to us and they're like, right, we want to make embryos. For us, having a proper sperm analysis with DNA fragmentation to look at this first is what we want. Because if they come back to us and say, we're looking at it and go, this sperm is not good, like you're going to come all the way to Georgia and make embryos. No, we need to make sure we're making your sperm as healthy as possible first, because you're going to spend a lot of money with us to make the embryo. So let's make sure we put you on a protocol for 3 months prior to coming out to Tbilisi, making sure we're giving you the best chance to make the most healthiest embryos, to give you the best chance, not just, okay, come out, let's just make these embryos and let's see what happens. You know, this is a big investment for people. So I think, no, looking at all the factors first, looking at their history to make embryos, I think is really important to making sure you're making the most healthiest embryos, first of all. And sometimes we go back and say, do this with the sperm, do this with your eggs. And they don't need to come for surrogacy, you know, it's worked for them because they've fixed the problems that were actually happening on a medical level. They didn't need surrogacy, you know,
Mm.
they only needed to fix sperm, you know, or, you know, something else along those lines.
Yeah, for sure. There's this one lady that I follow. I think she's a nutritionist based in Canada and stuff, and she
Yeah.
always says one of the first things she does for women that think they're kind of like almost infertile, like is she gets them eating pomegranates, and she said like it's incredible, like the success
Yeah.
rate she has just through, like you said,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just diet and it's just one little
Yeah.
tweak, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah. I
Mother
remember buying
Nature's
a lot of
given.
pomegranate juice, Gareth.
Yeah,
I
there
used
you
to drink
go.
a lot of it's good
Yeah,
for the blood supply.
yeah. So anyway, no, but it is fascinating, and I think like yeah, guys maybe they don't consider their sort of side of things when it comes to this
Yeah.
as well, you know, because
Yeah.
you know like they're
Yeah,
boozing
definitely.
and they're still partying and they're drinking badly, and like you know you actually
Yeah.
almost need to prepare your body for birth as well on both
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah. You really do. Like it's not just always the women that, you know, the drinking, the smoking, the vaping, it all kind of needs to put on a back burner and just to make yourself as healthy as possible before with whatever fertility you're going for, whether it's just whether you're self-transfer or surrogacy, you just want to make sure you're giving yourself the best chance, you know?
Yeah. Have you ever sort of come across, because there seems to be happening now a little bit, right? Or at least from what you kind of see out there, like where people want to sort of select certain things, like say, oh, I want a kid with blue eyes. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
this ever
Yeah.
something that comes up?
Yeah. So yeah, all the time, especially with intended parents using egg donation. So they will say, "This is me. I want a child to look like me," and it doesn't happen like that. It doesn't have like, yes, we can give you an egg donor with maybe light eyes if you have light eye, if the mother has light eyes, but if the father has dark eyes, it's genetics. In most cases, the child is going to come out with dark eyes. In most cases, sometimes not, but we can't, we can't, you know, we can't dictate how the child is going to come out and what color hair they're going to have and what color eyes they can have, because sometimes genetics goes back generations as well. So I have dark hair. Nick has dark hair. He has dark eyes. I have light eyes. My daughter has blonde hair.
Yeah.
But Nick's dad is blonde. So like, genetics play the part. It's science. We can't give you a blonde-eyed, blue-eyed child all the time if that's what you want. And you will love the child whatever the child is. If they come out with dark eyes and dark hair, then it doesn't change anything, does it?
Yeah, for sure. But also what I mean is like people are like there's apparently like say people they're tampering with these things. You know what I mean? Like they're like
I don't agree with it.
Of
I
course,
don't
yeah,
agree
yeah.
with
Okay, I
it.
was just wondering, like, have you ever come?
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
We haven't come across anything like that. I think in most of our situations, most people are kind of just happy to have a child.
mm.
Um, we haven't come across anything like that, like tampering with science and things to get that. No, definitely not.
Yeah,
No.
because that
But I've
definitely
heard there's something
crosses.
going on today in America that's come out today, something about all of this, isn't there?
Is there? No, I don't know. I didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, of different techniques and things. Need to look into it a little bit more, but I mean, I don't agree with that. I mean,
yeah,
obviously everyone has their own opinions, but I just think a baby is a baby, and you shouldn't be messing too much with that kind of things.
yeah. Because
Um,
what else are you impacting, right? Like, I mean, you don't know.
yeah,
You're really messing with nature here, and it's
yeah.
dangerous territory.
It can, yeah, it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous. And you don't know the long-term implications of this either.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, cool. Hannah, as we kind of like start sort of winding up here, just
Yeah.
last couple of questions. Like, what have you got coming up? What's like most exciting, like happening, I guess, in terms of business and
Yeah.
yeah.
So we've now just started in Colombia for surrogacy. With little embryos, it's with Colombia, it's been going on for a while, but we've started there now because in Georgia we can only work with heterosexual couples. That's one of the laws. So we're now working with Colombia and Armenia. So it allows for single women in Armenia where single women have not been allowed to do surrogacy anywhere really before, only Mexico and Armenia. So we're now working with both of those and also Colombia. So these are Mexico's not so new to us, but Armenia and Colombia are new to us. So we now have partners in these countries. So it opens up a whole nother world to helping singles and same-sex couples as well. So because I think everyone deserves to be a dad or a mum. So I think helping everyone is our end game, I think.
I'm sure it's been this like crazy sort of um, like uptick of information and learning
Yeah.
and growth for you, like
Yeah.
learning country law and stuff about medicine and, like just
Yeah.
people and bodies. And like, I can imagine you just learned so much in the last few
It's
years.
amazing. I mean, the research that comes with it, but just from working through them and, working with lawyers, working with doctors, working with notaries, you just take, when you love something and you're so passionate about something, I think you take in all the information because you want to know as much information as possible. I like, it's the best job in the world for me. I absolutely love it. I love helping people. Um, the high is amazing when you get something, when you're able to give a baby and help someone who's been in such a bad situation. So um, it's definitely a different job role, I would say, to what most people do. But and when you speak to people and tell them what you do, they're like, "What?" It's kind of like, it's a little bit out there, but yeah, it's amazing. I absolutely love it, and I love learning more and more every day. Different countries, and every country has a different law, um, and different things that are allowed. So yeah, it's all learning, and I'll continue to learn and continue in the business as long as I can.
That's very cool. And then just my last question is, what does
Yeah.
being ridiculously human mean to you?
I think being very strong minded, very strong to get through everything that I feel like I've been through in my life. I think when you walk this path, I think you find how where your strength comes from. Um, it's a different walk that most people will do in their life, but it definitely gives you a lot of hope, and especially for other people. So yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to say, like, you are, you've always been like a very inspiring lady and very sort of happy, and people gravitate towards that. And I'm now seeing, like, obviously this other side to you, where you're changing people's lives, and you're giving them hope and you're giving them joy. And that's incredible, right? So I don't think many people in the world can actually say that that's what they do. Like, of course, you're giving people babies, right? But what you're really doing is you're giving them hope and you're giving them joy.
Yeah.
And I guess like longevity too, and I can't think of the right word now, but you're sort of, you're giving their family line, like you're extending their family line, really, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of like
It's amazing.
yeah, it's like generational influence, really, So, yeah, it's just amazing, and I'm like so proud of you as a friend. So,
Oh, thanks, Gareth. Thanks,
yeah,
Gareth. And
and
it's it's great to see because I always stay in touch with the people that I'm helping. Like it's
yeah,
because I love to see how the kids are growing and the happy faces and the babies and the families that creating and it is amazing. It really, really is. But, yeah. Thanks, Gareth. That's really kind.
no, cool. Well, thank you so much, Hannah. It's been really cool chatting to you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.